Video game development is the process of creating a video game. Development is undertaken by a game developer, which may range from one person to a large business. Traditional commercial PC and console games is normally funded by a publisher and take several years to develop. Indie games can take less time and can be produced cheaply by individuals and small developers. The indie game industry has seen a rise in recent years with the growth of new online distribution systems and the mobile game market. The first video games were developed in the 1960s, but required mainframe computers and were not available to the general public. Commercial game development began in the 1970s with the advent of first-generation video game consoles and home computers. Due to low costs and low capabilities of computers, a lone programmer could develop a full game. However, approaching the 21st century, ever-increasing computer processing power and heightened consumer expectations made it difficult for a single developer to produce a mainstream console or PC game. The average cost of producing a video game slowly rose from $1–4 million in 2000 to over $5 million in 2006, then to over $20 million by 2010. Mainstream PC and console games are generally developed in phases. First, in pre-production, pitches, prototypes, and game design documents are written. If the idea is approved and the developer receives funding, a full-scale development begins. This usually involves a 20 to 100 person team of various responsibilities, such as designers, artists, programmers, testers, etc. Overview. Game development is the software development process by which a video game is produced. Games are developed as a creative outlet and to generate profit. Development is normally funded by a publisher. Well-made games bring profit more readily. However, it is important to estimate a game's financial requirements, such as development costs of individual features. Failing to provide clear implications of games' expectations may result in exceeding allocated budget. In fact, the majority of commercial games do not produce profit. Most developers cannot afford changing development schedule and require estimating their capabilities with available resources before production. The game industry requires innovations, as publishers cannot profit from constant release of repetitive sequels and imitations. Every year new independent development companies open and some manage to develop hit titles. Similarly, many developers close down because they cannot find a publishing contract or their production is not profitable. It is difficult to start a new company due to high initial investment required. Nevertheless, growth of casual and mobile game market has allowed developers with smaller teams to enter the market. Once the companies become financially stable, they may expand to develop larger games. Most developers start small and gradually expand their business. A developer receiving profit from a successful title may store up a capital to expand and refactor their company, as well as tolerate more failed deadlines. An average development budget for a multi-platform game is $18–28 with high-profile games often exceeding $40 million. In the early era of home computers and video game consoles in the early 1980s, a single programmer could handle almost all the tasks of developing a game: programming, graphical design, sound effects, etc. It could take as little as 6 weeks to develop a game. However, the high user expectations and requirements of modern commercial games far exceed the capabilities of a single developer and require the splitting of responsibilities. A team of over 100 people can be employed full-time for a single project. Game development, production, or design is a process that starts from an idea or concept. Often the idea is based on a modification of an existing game concept. The game idea may fall within one or several genres. Designers often experiment with different combinations of genres. Game designer usually produces initial game proposal document that contains the concept, gameplay, feature list, setting and story, target audience. requirements and schedule, staff and budget estimates. Different companies have different formal procedures and philosophies regarding game design and development. There is no standardized development method, however commonalities exist. Game development is undertaken by a game developer, ranging from an individual to a large company. There can be independent or publisher-owned studios. Independent developers rely on financial support from a game publisher. They usually have to develop a game from concept to prototype without external funding. The formal game proposal is then submitted to publishers, who may finance the game development from several months to years. The publisher would retain exclusive rights to distribute and market the game and would often own the intellectual property rights for the game. Franchise. Publisher's company may also own the developer's company, or it may have internal development studio. Generally, the publisher is the one who owns the game's intellectual property rights. All but the smallest developer companies work on several titles at once. This is necessary because of the time taken between shipping a game and receiving royalty payments, which may be between 6 to 18 months. Small companies may structure contracts, ask for advances on royalties, use shareware distribution, employ part-time workers and use other methods to meet payroll demands. Console manufacturers, such as Microsoft, Nintendo, or Sony, have a standard set of technical requirements that a game must conform to in order to be approved. Additionally, the game concept must be approved by the manufacturer, who may refuse to approve certain titles. Most modern PC or console games take from 1 to 3 years to complete, whereas a mobile game can be developed in a few months. The length of development is influenced by a number of factors, such as genre, scale, development platform and amount of assets. Some games can take much longer than the average time frame to complete. An infamous example is 3D Realms' Duke Nukem Forever, announced to be in production in April 1997 and released 14 years later in June 2011. Planning for Maxis GameSpot began in late 1999. The game was released 9 years later in September 2008. The game Prey was briefly profiled in a 1997 issue of PC Gamer, but was not released until 2006, and only then in highly altered form. Finally, Team Fortress 2 was in development from 1998 until its 2007 release, and emerged from a convoluted development process involving probably 3 or 4 different games, according to Gabe Newell. The game revenue from retails is divided among the parties along the distribution chain, such as developer, publisher, retail, manufacturer and console royalty. Many developers fail to profit from this and go bankrupt. Many developers seek alternative economic models through internet marketing and distribution channels to improve returns. As through a mobile distribution channel, the share of a developer can be up to 70% of the total revenue, and through an online distribution channel, almost 100%. History. The history of game making begins with the development of the first video games. Although which video game is the first depends on the definition of video game. The first games created had little entertainment value, and their development focus was separate from user experience. In fact, these games required mainframe computers to play them. OXO, written by Alexander S. Douglas in 1952, was the first computer game to use a digital display. In 1958, a game called Tennis for Two, which displayed its output on an oscilloscope, was made by Willie Higginbotham, a physicist working at the Brookhaven National Laboratory. In 1961, a mainframe computer game called Space War was developed by a group of Massachusetts Institute of Technology students led by Steve Russell. True commercial design and development of games began in the 1970s, when arcade video games and first-generation consoles were marketed. In 1971, Computer Space was the first commercially sold, coin-operated video game. It used a black-and-white television for its display, and the computer system was made of 74 series TTL chips. In 1972, the first home console system was released called Magnavox Odyssey, developed by Ralph H. Baer. That same year, Atari released Pong, an arcade game that increased video game popularity. The commercial success of Pong led other companies to develop Pong clones, spawning the video game industry. Programmers worked within the big companies to produce games for these devices. The industry did not see huge innovation in game design, and a large number of consoles had very similar games. Many of these early games were often Pong clones. Some games were different, however, such as Gunfight, which was significant for several reasons. An early 1975 on-foot, multi-directional shooter, which depicted game characters, game violence, and human-to-human combat. Tomohiro Nishikado's original version was based on discrete logic, which Dave Nutting adapted using the Intel 8080, making it the first video game to use a microprocessor. Console manufacturers soon started to produce consoles that were able to play independently developed games, and ran on microprocessors, marking the beginning of second-generation consoles, beginning with the release of the Fairchild Channel F in 1976. The flood of Pong clones led to the video game crash of 1977, which eventually came to an end with the mainstream success of Taito's 1978 arcade shooter game Space Invaders, marking the beginning of the golden age of arcade video games and inspiring dozens of manufacturers to enter the market. Its creator Nishikado not only designed and programmed the game, but also did the artwork, engineered the arcade hardware, and put together a microcomputer from scratch. It was soon ported to the Atari 2600, becoming the first killer app, and quadrupling the console's sales. At the same time, home computers appeared on the market, allowing individual programmers and hobbyists to develop games. This allowed hardware manufacturer and software manufacturers to act separately. A very large amount of games could be produced by single individuals, as games were easy to make because graphical and memory limitation did not allow for much content. Larger companies developed, who focused selected teams to work on a title. The developers of many early home video games, such as Zork, Baseball, Air Warrior, and Adventure, later transitioned their work as products of the early video game industry. The industry expanded significantly at the time, with the arcade video game sector alone generating higher revenues than both pop music and Hollywood films combined. The home video game industry, however, suffered major losses following the North American video game crash of 1983. In 1984, John Freeman warned in Computer Gaming World, Q, "A computer game's the way to fame and fortune. No, not unless your idea of fame is having your name recognized by one or two astute individuals at Origins. I've been making a living designing games for most of the last 6 years. I wouldn't recommend it for someone with a weak heart or a large appetite, though." Chris Crawford and Don DeGlow in 1987 similarly advised prospective designers to write games as a hobby first, and to not quit their existing jobs early. The home video game industry was revitalized soon after by the widespread success of the Nintendo Entertainment System. By 1987, a video game required 12 months to develop and another 6 to plan marketing. Projects remained usually solo efforts, with single developers delivering finished games to their publishers. With the ever-increasing processing and graphical capabilities of arcade, console and computer products, along with an increase in user expectations, game design moved beyond the scope of a single developer to produce a marketable game in a reasonable time. This sparked the beginning of team-based development. In broad terms, during the 1980s, pre-production involved sketches and test routines of the only developer. In the 1990s, pre-production consisted mostly of game art previews. In the early 2000s, pre-production usually produced a playable demo. In 2000, a 12 to 36-month development project was funded by a publisher for $1 Additionally, $250,000 minus $1.5 were spent on marketing and sales development. In 2001, over 3,000 games were released for PC, and from about 100 games turning profit, only about 50 made significant profit. In the early 2000s, it became increasingly common to use middleware game engines, such as Quake Engine or Unreal Engine. In the early 2000s, also mobile games started to gain popularity. However, mobile games distributed by mobile operators remained a marginal form of gaming until the Apple App Store was launched in 2008. In 2005, a mainstream console video game cost from $3 million to $6 million to develop. Some games cost as much as $20 million to develop. In 2006, the profit from a console game sold at retail was divided among parties of distribution chain as follows: developer, publisher, retail, manufacturer, console royalty. In 2008, a developer would retain around 17% of retail price and around 85% if sold online. Since the third generation of consoles, the home video game industry has constantly increased and expanded. The industry revenue has increased at least five-fold since the 1990s. In 2007, the software portion of video game revenue was $9.5 billion, exceeding that of the movie industry. The Apple App Store, introduced in 2008, was the first mobile application store operated directly by the mobile platform holder. It significantly changed the consumer behavior more favorable for downloading mobile content and quickly broadened the markets of mobile games. In 2009, games market annual value was estimated between $7–30 billion, depending on which sales figures are included. This is on par with film's box office market. A publisher would typically fund an independent developer for $500,000 $5 million for a development of a title. In 2012, the total value had already reached $66.3 billion, and by then the video game markets were not anymore dominated by console games. According to Newzoo, the share of MMOs was 19.8%, PC, Macs 9.8%, tablets 3.2%, smartphones 10.6%, handhelds 9.8%, consoles only 36.7%, and online casual games 10.2%. The fastest-growing market segments being mobile games with an average annual rate of 19% for smartphones and 48% for tablets. In the past several years, many developers opened and many closed down. Each year a number of developers are acquired by larger companies or merge with existing companies. For example, in 2007, Blizzard Entertainment's parent company, Vivendi Games, merged with Activision. In 2008, Electronic Arts nearly acquired Take-Two Interactive. In 2009, Midway Games was acquired by Time Warner and Eidos Interactive merged with Square Enix.